This is the Business Black Book, where billion-dollar empires are built and collapse. Sand, you walk on it every day. You build with it. You live inside it. But here is something almost nobody tells you. Sand is disappearing, not slowly, not gradually, rapidly, and the people stealing it are making billions. Today, we decode one of the most invisible and most violent resource crises on the planet, the Great Sand Mafia. Let us begin with a question that sounds almost absurd. How can sand be scarce? The Sahara Desert alone covers 9 million square kilometers, the Arabian Peninsula, the Australian outback. Sand is everywhere. So how is it possible that the world is running out of it? The answer lies in a simple but critical distinction. Not all sand is equal. Desert sand is smooth. Wind spends thousands of years rolling those grains against each other until they become almost perfectly round, like tiny ball bearings. That roundness makes them useless for construction. They do not bind. They do not interlock. They cannot hold concrete together. The sand that built your city came from riverbeds, from coastlines, from the bottom of lakes and ocean floors. That sand is angular, rough-edged, jagged at the microscopic level. When you mix that sand with cement and water, it grips, it bonds, it holds up buildings that weigh hundreds of thousands of tons. And that is the sand the world is running out of. So, let us understand the scale of what we are talking about. According to the United Nations Environment Program, humanity extracts roughly 50 billion tons of sand and gravel every single year. 50 billion. That is enough to build a wall 60 meters high and 27 meters wide around the entire planet every year. Sand is now the second most consumed natural resource on Earth after water, more than oil, more than coal, more than iron ore. We are using more sand than any other material by weight, and we are using it at a speed the planet simply cannot replace. A river deposits sand over thousands of years. We can empty that same river in a matter of months. Now, let us go deeper into why this matters so much. Modern civilization is essentially made of sand. Not metaphorically, literally. Concrete is approximately 60 to 70% sand. Every road, every bridge, every apartment building, every hospital, every dam, every factory is mostly sand. Glass is made from sand. The microchips inside your phone are made from highly purified silicon, which comes from sand. The solar panels that are supposed to save the planet are made from sand. Fiber optic cables that carry the internet are made from sand. You are surrounded by sand right now. You are probably looking at it. The world's construction boom of the last 30 years has been historically unprecedented. China alone poured more concrete between 2000 and 2013 than the United States used in the entire 20th century. India is building tens of millions of homes under various government housing schemes. Southeast Asia is expanding at a pace not seen in modern history. Africa is urbanizing rapidly. All of this requires sand, and all of this sand has to come from somewhere. That somewhere is rivers. Let us look at what is happening at the river level, because this is where the crisis becomes very real. India has approximately 450 major rivers. These rivers have historically supplied the sand for India's construction industry, but demand has grown so fast and legal mining has been so insufficient that illegal sand extraction has exploded into a multi-thousand crore criminal enterprise. The Yamuna, the Ganga, the Mahanadi, the Kehakda. These are not just rivers, they are sand banks, and those banks are being emptied. Sand mining operations typically work like this. A gang moves in at night. Hundreds of trucks, machines called dredges that suck sand directly from riverbeds. By the time the sun comes up, they are gone. What took the river a decade to accumulate is loaded on trucks in 8 hours. This is not a small operation. This is industrialized plunder. The mafia structure that controls sand in India is deeply embedded. At the bottom, you have local laborers, many of them daily wage workers who have no other option. Above them are the contractors who own the dredges and trucks. Above them are the financiers, often legitimate businessmen with clean reputations. And at the top of this pyramid, politicians and bureaucrats who receive a cut of every ton extracted. Sand syndicate leaders in states like Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Haryana, and Andhra Pradesh are known to control hundreds of trucks. They have their own private security. They have corrupted local police stations. They have bribed district officials. When journalists or activists try to investigate, the threats are very real. Between 2012 and 2022, dozens of people in India were killed for opposing sand mining. Journalists, activists, police officers who refused to cooperate, villagers who protested outside their own homes. This is not petty crime. This is a parallel economy with guns. Let us now look at what illegal sand mining actually does to the environment, because the damage is catastrophic and largely ignored by the mainstream conversation. When sand is extracted from a riverbed faster than the river can replenish it, the riverbed sinks. This is called riverbed degradation. A sinking riverbed means the water level in the river drops. When the water level drops, the groundwater on either side of the river, which relies on the river to recharge, also drops. Wells dry up. Crops fail. Villages that existed near rivers for centuries suddenly have no water. In Vietnam and Cambodia, the Mekong River has lost so much sand to illegal extraction that the Delta region, which feeds over 60 million people, is literally sinking into the sea. This is not a future threat. It is happening right now. In India, studies have found that riverbeds in several mining-heavy areas have dropped by 2 to 3 meters in a single decade. This is not gradual geological change. This is human-induced collapse at a speed the ecosystem cannot handle. Bridges collapse because the foundations of bridges are built assuming a certain riverbed level. When the bed drops by 2 meters, The piers that hold up the bridge are suddenly exposed and unstable. In India alone, multiple bridge collapses over the last decade have been directly linked to illegal sand mining beneath them. Coastal sand mining creates a different but equally devastating problem. Beaches disappear. Coastal erosion accelerates. The natural buffers that protect shorelines from storm surge are removed. Communities that lived near the coast for generations are suddenly flooded in Sri Lanka, Morocco, Indonesia, and Vietnam. Entire beach ecosystems have been destroyed by sand extraction operations. Coral reefs buried under mining sediment. Fish populations collapsing because breeding grounds are destroyed. Fishing communities losing their livelihoods permanently. Now, let us address some common misconceptions, because there are several things people believe about sand that are simply not accurate. The first misconception is that desert nations like Saudi Arabia or the UAE have no sand problem. In fact, the UAE imports sand from Australia. This seems impossible until you understand the roundness issue we discussed. The Emirati desert has plenty of sand, but it is the wrong kind. So the world's largest sand construction projects in Dubai that are partially built with sand shipped from 12,000 kilometers away. The economics of this seem absurd, but the engineering reality makes it necessary. The second misconception is that sand scarcity only affects poor countries. This is false. Singapore has had to reclaim land from the sea to accommodate its growing population. To do this, Singapore imports enormous quantities of sand to literally build new land. At one point, Singapore was the world's largest importer of sand by volume. This caused such severe environmental damage in neighboring countries that Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Cambodia all banned sand exports to Singapore at various points. A wealthy first world city-state, literally unable to grow because it could not get sand. The third misconception is that sand can simply be replaced with recycled materials. Technically, some recycled glass and industrial byproducts can replace a small percentage of natural sand in construction. But the scale of replacement required is enormous. The infrastructure to process and distribute these alternatives does not currently exist at the volume needed. Crushed rock can partially substitute for river sand, but it is significantly more expensive and requires energy-intensive processing. The fourth misconception is that this problem has an easy policy solution. It does not. The demand for sand is driven by urbanization, which is driven by population growth and economic development. Telling developing nations to slow down their housing construction because of sand scarcity is not a realistic political option. The real-world impact of this crisis lands differently depending on who you are. If you are a student or a young professional in India trying to buy a flat, the Sand Mafia is directly increasing the cost of that flat. When construction material supply is artificially restricted and controlled by criminal networks, prices rise. A two-bedroom apartment in many Indian cities costs 20 to 30% more than it should, partly because of inflated construction material cost driven by corrupt supply chains. If you are a salaried employee taking a home loan, the interest you pay over 20 years is compounded by a construction cost that was inflated at the base. You are paying a hidden tax to criminal networks, and you do not even know it. If you are a small business owner in a riverside village, illegal sand mining may have already destroyed your water source, collapsed a local bridge, or made your land prone to flooding. You bear the cost directly. You have no hedge. If you are a middle-aged homeowner, the infrastructure around you, roads, flyovers, drainage systems, is built with sand that may have been illegally extracted and improperly priced. The structural integrity questions that arise from substandard sand for real. Sand sold through illegal chains is often contaminated with silt or salt. Salty sand destroys concrete from the inside over time. This is not an abstract environmental crisis. This is a cost of living crisis, a housing crisis, an infrastructure crisis, and a governance failure, all wrapped inside a material you have never thought twice about. So, what do financially and strategically aware people understand when they look at this situation? The first thing they understand is that scarcity in invisible commodities is the most dangerous kind. Oil scarcity is visible. Everyone tracks it, everyone prices it. Sand scarcity is invisible. It does not show up on commodity exchanges. There is no global sand price index. It does not trend on financial news. That invisibility is precisely why the criminal networks that control it operate with such impunity. The second thing they understand is that this is a governance problem at its core. Sand is not intrinsically scarce in India. India has thousands of kilometers of rivers. The scarcity is manufactured by corrupt licensing systems, captured regulatory bodies, and political protection of criminal networks. Countries that have solved this problem, like the Netherlands, which is one of the world's most sophisticated sand dredging nations, have done so through transparent licensing, environmental impact assessments, and genuine enforcement. The third thing they understand is that alternatives will eventually be forced on the market. Manufactured sand, also called M-sand, which is made by crushing rock, is already used extensively in South India and is growing in adoption across the country. As river sand becomes more expensive and scarcer, manufactured alternatives become economically viable. Companies building that manufacturing capacity today are positioned well for the next decade. The fourth thing they understand is that environmental degradation always has an economic cost that is paid later. The rivers that are being destroyed today will require billions in restoration investment in the future. The bridges that collapse will require emergency rebuilding. The coastal erosion will require expensive protective infrastructure. The water table drops will require desalination or deep bore wells. Every rupee saved by allowing illegal extraction will be paid back with interest by the public. And the fifth thing they understand is that when a criminal economy becomes large enough, it does not stay confined to its original sector. Sand mafias in India are now believed to have diversified into real estate, transport logistics, and political financing. The corruption they generate is systemic. It does not stop at the riverbank. The sand under your city was not put there by the market. It was not delivered by a legitimate supply chain. In many cases, it was taken violently at the cost of rivers, ecosystems, bridges, and lives. And nobody told you. Now you know. And with that, the Black Book closes. Subscribe, and we will open the next page soon.